Hi everyone, sorry about my microphone in this video. I hope you enjoy this video and I'll get a microphone next video. Please subscribe and like. I promise I will post better videos in the future. You have made a phone call from a mountain before. Maybe just to check in, maybe to say you found the trail, maybe just to hear a familiar voice before the signal dropped. It felt ordinary. It probably was. But there's a pattern that investigators have been quietly studying for years, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. 6 hikers, 6 separate cases, 6 different mountains, different years, different countries, and in every single case, the last thing they did before they vanished was make a phone call. Not send a text, a call, and in every single call, they said almost the same thing. Let that sit in for a moment. The cases spanned from 2004 to 2019. The victims ranged in ages from 19 to 41. 3 were solo hikers, 2 were in pairs, 1 was part of a group of 4, the other one wandered off to get a better signal. None of them were inexperienced, none of them were unprepared, and none of them were ever found. Not their bodies, not their gear, not a single piece of evidence that told investigators what happened in the hours after that final call ended. What investigators did find, across all 6 cases, was the call itself, recorded, archived, in some cases played back in courtrooms that ultimately had nothing to charge anyone with. Forensic audio specialist Dr. Gail Ressler, who has worked with missing persons until in both the United States and Germany, noted in 2017 paper published in the journal Forensic Sciences that the linguistic patterns in last known communications from wilderness disappearance show a striking degree of uniformity. The callers, she wrote, almost had described their immediate environment in present tense. They almost always mentioned a specific landmark or direction, and they almost always said some version of the final phrase before hanging up. A phrase that sounded like a goodbye, but does not feel like one. Something like, I think I can see it from here, or I'm almost there, or I will call you when I get back to the car. They never called back. The first case is from 2004. A 23-year-old geology student named Marcus Webb was hiking alone in the Cairngorm Mountains in Scotland. He called his flatmate at 2:47 in the afternoon. He said the weather had turned a little. He said he had found a stream and was following it downhill. He said he could see a break in the tree line and thought the car was parked just beyond it. He said he'd be back by dinner. His flatmate said, "Okay, see you later." The call lasted 41 seconds. Marcus Webb was never seen again. The search lasted 11 days and covered over 60 square miles. They found his footprint in soft ground near the stream. They found nothing else. The second case is from 2007. A 31-year-old teacher from Ohio named Diane Crowley was hiking with a friend in the Smoky Mountains. Her friend had twisted her ankle and stayed at camp. Diane went ahead alone. She called her mother at 4:12 in the afternoon. She said the view was beautiful. She said the summit was close. She said she would be back before dark. Her mother said, "Be careful." Diane said, "I will." The call ended. Diane Crowley's friend waited at the camp until midnight before alerting rangers. Search teams found Diane's water bottle on the trail, 300 meters past the last marked turn. They found nothing else. The pattern holds. It held in 2009 in the Swiss Alps. It held in 2011 in New Zealand's South Island. It held in 2014 in the Appalachian Trail corridor in Virginia, and it held again in 2019 in the Canadian Rockies, in a case that received significant media attention for roughly 2 weeks before it quietly disappeared from the news. Dr. Kenneth Silber, a behavioral geographer at the University of Colorado, who has spent 12 years mapping the spatial patterns of wilderness disappearance, published findings in 2020 suggesting that the vast majority of hikers who vanish without a trace do so within a very specific behavioral window. They are close to their destination. They believe they are almost done. They have communicated that belief to someone, and then something changes, and no one ever finds out what. Silber calls this the threshold phenomenon, the point at which a person is so certain of safety that their vigilance drops, not because they become reckless, because they feel vanished. The hard part, they believe, is behind them. He's not saying that threshold is what kills them. He is saying that threshold is constantly where they disappear. What makes all 6 of these cases unusual, even within that framework, is the phone call. Most hikers who vanish do not make their call in their final moments. These 6 did. And investigators who have looked at the case collectively, including retired National Park Service Search and Rescue Coordinator Ray Thibodeau, who spent 28 years running wilderness recovery operations, have noted something uncomfortable. In each of the 6 calls, the hiker was calm, oriented, specific about where they were, and wrong about how close they were to safety. Not off by miles, off by minutes. In every reconstruction, investigators placed the callers within half a kilometer of either a trail, junction, a road, or the original starting point. Marcus Webb, based on the stream he described and the direction he said he was walking, was estimated to be less than 400 meters from the car park when he called. Diane Crowley, based on the trail segment where her water bottle was found, was less than 6 minutes of walking from the summit, which had a ranger station at its peak. They were almost there, and then they were not there at all. A psychological term for the state these hikers may have been experiencing, decision fatigue, compounded by what cognitive scientist Dr. Amos Tversky described in foundational work on the planning fallacy, the consistent human tendency to underestimate the time, risk, and effort remaining in any task. Once you believe you are in the final stage of completing it, you stop calculating, you start assuming, and then in wilderness environment, the gap between assumption and reality can be invisible until it is fatal. But that still does not explain the absence of any physical evidence in any of these cases. Ray Thibodeau, in an interview he gave to Outside Magazine in 2021, said that his career, he had never encountered a cluster of cases where the trail went this cold, this fast, in such accessible terrain. He used the word accessible deliberately. These were not remote Arctic expeditions, these were popular hiking areas with maintained trails and regular foot traffic. And yet, in all 6 cases, after the phone call ended, it was as if the hiker had stepped off the edge of the known world. You probably don't think about your phone when you hike. You probably check the battery before you go. You probably leave it in your pocket and try to enjoy the absence of it. You probably, if you're honest, feel a small relief when the signal drops and there's nothing to check, nothing to respond to, just the trail in the air and the sound of your own footsteps. And maybe the signal comes back, you send a quick message, maybe you call someone, maybe you say, I think I can see you from here. I'm almost there. I'll call you when I get back to the car. 6 hikers said exactly that. None of them called back. And tonight, somewhere on a trail that has cell coverage for exactly 1 bar in a specific spot near the ridge, someone is lifting their phone to their ear. The signal holds. It connects. They say the ordinary things. The person on their end says, see you soon, and the call ends. And then the trail goes quiet. In that moment, the moment just after the call ends and before the next step is taken, that moment is the one no one has ever been able to explain. Not any of the 6 cases, not yet, maybe not ever. You have made a phone call from a mountain before. You thought nothing of it. You're probably right. But you'll never know for certain what happened in the silence after Marcus Webb said goodbye, after Diane Crowley said, I will, after 6 ordinary voices said ordinary things into an ordinary signal, and then went somewhere no search team has ever been found. You only know that they called, that someone answered, and then the mountain kept whatever came next entirely to itself.